Up and at 'em, 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, officially the midway point, about the midway point, I guess sometime today when there's 31 days, but of January. We're working our way through warmer weather, sunshine. It's all in the future. It's coming down the pipe. We just got to get through a few more weeks of cold and, well, Preston, I don't know if you've seen the outlying forecast for late next week, potentially snow.
Okay.
An actual snow from what I've seen.
Let's do it. We can do snow. We don't want any of that wintry mix stuff.
Okay.
Give us about 2 to 3 inches of snow, a little dusting, let it stay overnight.
Okay.
And then go away the next day.
Yeah, have a little fun, be able to, build your snowman, get your photos. But ice is so unpredictable. I've driven in ice storms. No, sir.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Okay.
But snow is nice.
All right. So it's potential. Jen will keep you updated on that.
That'll be fun. With
the weather report, as I believe it's about mid next week. It's looking potentially like that. But right now, we'll get you through this week. Coming off a relatively interesting, depended on how you wanted to make last night, Preston Thorne. It was all about how you wanted to make it. Did you want to dive into a great sports night with 3 top 25 SEC basketball games, with the golf league and the debut of Tiger Woods? Did you want to dive into all of it and just have a big sports night, almost a 4 TV night? Or did you want to watch Landman or America Primeval or some kind of streaming show and get away from sports in general as we're hitting that time of year? It was whatever you wanted last night. And did you get into any? Did you just take 10 minutes just to check out the golf league and just see, hey, what is this?
I got to be honest, I totally forgot. It was on the docket. We were battling all types of sickness running through the Thorne household, and just skip my mind. That being said, did I miss anything?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest, this tech infused golf league, tomorrow's golf league, or the golf league, yeah. Which with 3 names, you think you'd be like me. I forgot too. Just goes to show you, I got into a documentary on a volcano and people being on the volcano in New Zealand when it exploded. It was on Netflix. And all of a sudden I looked at it, was like 7:20. I was like, oh. And then I'm like, I'm 3/4 of the way into the documentary. I'm trying to figure out if I want to finish this out and then go to, but I flipped over, got done, was late to the party, about 30, 35 minutes late to the party. Yeah, you missed the guy who basically we've drawn up the league for. Oh, sorry, Tiger, you can't walk 18 holes. You can't walk 36. You can't make it 54, 72 anymore and play golf. We could create a league for you where really all you got to do is walk 50 yards from the tee box back to a little green back there and still hit your shots. And Preston, what I saw last night was interesting, and it's an eyesight, it's a view into the mind of the uber competitive. In some way, shape, or form, I think the majority of us are all competitive. But I also feel like you have the ability, if you want to play, say, basketball in the driveway with your 5-year-old daughter, 6-year-old daughter, you can turn the competitiveness off. The elbows stop flying. The legitimate box outs stop boxing out. You realize that. And I think at some point, for the majority of us, we have an off switch where we look around and we go, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to relax and have a good time. But for certain athletes, that's not there. Do you agree with that? That yes. Off switch is just simply not there.
Agreed. Yeah, totally.
Tiger Woods doesn't have that off switch.
I would assume so. I would assume he does not have it.
And
I would assume that when Charlie beats Tiger, it's going to be honest. If it hasn't happened already, but when it does happen, I'd assume Tiger's not letting Charlie beat him at anything.
There were 5 guys last night, 3 for Team Los Angeles, 2 for Team Jupiter, who I thought the majority of the time had a really good time. Kevin Kisner and Max Homa for Tiger's team were smiles and jokes and having a good time. They were getting thumped. Tiger's team got thumped. On the flip side of that, you had Colin Morikawa, who I thought actually showed some personality. Thahith Sagala, who I think is perfect for these kind of events. And then you also had Justin Rose, who can be a little boring, but I think stepped to the plate. And at times you had Tiger smile and have fun. But then Tiger started to struggle on virtual golf. He pulled a par 3 tee shot what we'll say is fairly well left. And when Matt Berry kind of was like, oh, what happened there? You got a very stern-faced, a huge gust of wind in virtual golf. When Tiger started to miss some shots, I watched his face, and this is no fun no more. It's time to end this. I don't want to be here anymore. It was really interesting for me to watch an event where they're getting money. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. They're getting paid, and they're in this golf league. But that is supposed to be kind of fun and an insight into personalities and what it's like. Yeah, you saw Tiger go from, oh, this is fun, I'm enjoying this, to this is awful, I absolutely hate being here. Please end this thing now.
So if there's a clown face, at one of the greens, he'd probably punch the clown's nose. Like, he'd be that guy.
Yeah. Now, I give him credit, too, because I also felt towards the end, it was like he caught himself. And he had to, it was kind of like like where you want to get mad and yell in public and scream that you realize I'm going to look really foolish if I do this.
And he's the salesman of this whole thing, right? So he has to have a good face on. He's trying to sell this whole product. He can't be doing it sour and cursing people out. That's not going to be a good.
So it was, to me, because I love seeing those personalities. I always think about like a Michael Jordan who they've always said, like, doesn't matter what you're doing, he's ultra competitive and just simply takes it a step too far. But to watch Tiger last night doing in a game, which, again, essentially, and he's, again, one of the co-founders, made for him now, so he doesn't walk. It was interesting to watch his reactions last night on virtual golf, because, Preston, we're going to do it this Friday. We'll be out at Pro Swing. And, virtual golf is a ton of fun. It has its small flaws. There's small flaws to it. And it felt like last night was the first time I saw some of those small flaws there. Like you said, he hit one shot on a par 3. I think he felt was pretty good. But it was pulled left and off the green. So it was, again, is it worth watching? I don't feel great about myself watching a lot of it last night when there was a lot better basketball on. Let's just say that.
All right. Third choice, maybe.
Yeah.
If you had to make choices.
Auburn, Mississippi State was turning into a rout. Kentucky, Texas A&M was pretty good, and Ole Miss pulls the upset if you wanted to get into basketball last night.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't a ringing endorsement. I'm still going to check it out because I need to see it with my own eyes and get an assessment of it, but that wasn't a great endorsement. Like, as I said, if they're trying to do this to promote the golfers, make us more interested in PGA golf, give us glimpses into their personalities, I think they need to go that route. I mean, the golf is virtual golf, so I don't know if that's going to be the thing that hooks people in. But what's happening with all these other venues of golf, YouTube, TikTok, blah, 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 you get to learn about these golfers, and that is what bringing you in. So if that's what they're doing, I'll be here for it. But it feels like Tiger wants to be a wet blanket on all of that. He doesn't get that. I personally, and this is why I would like to hear from others on what they're seeing, because I'm seeing guys, or at least last night was better with 5 of the 6. It's almost like I almost kind of want to be like, put him a beer out there, put him a big old plate of nachos, just like we'll do in a few weeks when we go to the United Way and play with our good buddy Murray Coleman. Put a big plate of nachos out there and truly let me see them having to take the golf glove off to get to the nachos and the cheese so it doesn't get on your golf glove. Let me see them go over and have You're right. Show me the personalities that I want to see. And then you've got ultra competitors. You've got ultra competitors who are in the spotlight. There's a crowd there. Last night there was multiple celebrities there. And it's almost like they're trying to find their way of how to turn that competitiveness off, yet still be competitive, but still have a good time. And I'd be wildly interested, 803-404-6100, for anybody else's opinions of what they're watching with this thing. Because I will say this, I think it's got an incredibly short shelf life. Like you said, it's not a ringing endorsement, because I don't want to be the one behind being like, you got to watch this thing. It's great TV. I don't know what it is just yet. Okay. All right, I'm going to check it out. I will check it out next time it's on.
So next Tuesday, that is their golf league night, I guess, as you want to say it. 803-404-6100. We'll get into some basketball this morning. Big game tonight. Yes, quite possibly
you tiptoed to it yesterday.
Probably the biggest game of the year. Probably fair to say when I look at the schedule, when I look at what's coming down the pipe, even with a trip to Oklahoma, an unranked Oklahoma team, I think it's fair to say that this is the biggest game of the year for Second, because I just don't know if you can recover from another loss. And I'll take it even further. We would need a different variation of biggest game of the career, but I do feel like in a way tonight could push how people want to view the Lamont Paris first 3 seasons in a different direction. There's a little bit more. The more I looked at it last night, the more I thought about it, the more I glanced at it, the more I watched Kentucky and Texas A&M, the more I watched Auburn and Mississippi State, although Auburn gave them a pretty good beating. The more I watched Alabama and Mississippi. I just, in all seriousness, I don't want to go overly dramatic on you, but there's some stuff here with this game tonight with a South Carolina team that did they turn a corner? Is this a better lineup? Is this more conducive to what Lamont Paris wants? Was that a flash in the pan? Is Arden Conyers really just a one game now that there's video on it? I have so many questions, and I'm really, really interested. We'll get into this a little bit this morning. Let you hear a little bit from Lamont Paris as well. 803-404-6100. How you can weigh in if you want to do so this morning. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It's the early game.
Preston here for the good folks at Integrated Media. We've been trying to tell you all year to get yourself ready with your outdoor setup. Well, though it may not be conducive to do it in January, spring is around the corner, and you can get yourself set up with Integrated Media. You can get Samsung Terrace TVs that are waterproof. You can get Sonos outdoor speakers for TV and music, or Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors. Or my personal favorite, controlling all your devices from just one remote. So whatever it is you want to watch, basketball, the golf league, tomorrow's golf league, whatever they call it, you can do that with the good folks at Integrated Media. So from home theater setup to adjusting your thermostat or monitoring your security systems from your cell phone, Integrated Media is the company that you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or you can reach them online at integratedmediainc.com. That's online at integratedmediainc.com.
And taking a peek out there this morning, things are a little bit busy on the highways. Crystal Springs Drive at Edmond Highway. Also, I-77 northbound at Bluff Road has an accident. Langford Road at Hardscrabble, also a report of a slowdown there. So just be careful this morning if you would want your Wednesday morning to start off well. Sunny today, tomorrow, and Friday. High today 50, 57 tomorrow and Friday. Our overnight lows still going to be, around 26, 30, something like that. Friday into Saturday, we warm up a little bit in the overnight hours. But looking to stay kind of in the 50s, honestly, throughout the weekend, and that wintry mix possible. Not looking at that till mid next week. But right now, 35 on 107.5 The Game.
(803-404-6100), where a couple of you have weighed in. Les on the Golf League, tomorrow's Golf League, Tech-infused Golf League. We got an issue just right there, as you pointed out last week. But Les says, I couldn't agree with you. I agree with you, Bill. I thought it was entertaining, but I could tell this would be something that would not last a while. It will fade away. So, yeah, get a glimpse in there quickly.
So this is cool. This would be cool, like, for a special, or like maybe how they were doing the matchups where they were doing like the two players, and I forget what they were calling it, but I think they were calling it the matchup or whatever.
Yeah, the match. I think it's
the match. So it'd be something like that, like once a quarter or something. Like they're trying to do this every week.
Like a mid-season, like in the NASCAR season in the summer, they're actually going to do a special, different type of a tournament or whatever, just to kind of rejuvenate people being interested.
Maybe something like that.
I haven't figured it out just yet. Well,
again, I can't offer too much because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that's I think part of it is trying to figure out where this all fits. Also, the PGA gets going out in California tomorrow. But, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's interesting to where I'll watch for a third week, but it's not like I'm tuning in for 2 hours. It's more of I'm here for about 15 or 20 minutes to see what you got. 803-404-6100. Stephen in Roanoke weighs in this morning. Hope he's staying warm up there, Stephen. Said this is a must-win game tonight for fans to keep interest in this year, and that's another good point.
There you go, Stephen. Now you're talking. We were trying to tiptoe up to this conversation yesterday, and I had to force Bill to do it. And, Stephen, I think you're 100% right. Forget the team. Forget everybody else. For many fans, maybe myself included, to keep very much interested in this season, this is a game that they have to win. I think that's the bottom line.
I think because I would probably be with you, and this may be where I'm having a hard time drawing my line, because I just saw the interest of, to me, that Oklahoma game, going to a brand new venue and everything. I had circled Saturday's game. I've had it circled for a while. Also helps that I'm going down to Folly Beach for that Taste of Folly, and I'm kind of like, ooh, eat oysters, watch basketball. This will be fun. But I'm with you. We're right at that pinnacle moment now where you've already got complaints. Let me take that back. You've already got rumblings about another fan base coming in and taking over your building on a Saturday. Kind of Nick Pringle alluded to that, trying to shoot free throws Saturday after the game. You've got, I don't want to say fan interest at 50-50, but that's what it feels like, right? Like, it's almost like fans are looking right over the hill, and they're like, "Oh, Pulmonarian baseball right over there. We're not far away. Basketball, okay. Well, yeah, it's just kind of that point where I can see fans' interest swaying away from the men's side of things. We still got the women. We got baseball coming up. We'll put them on the back burner till next year, and I've seen that happen so many times in the last 25 years.
Yeah, they're very close to that aspect, but I think the key difference is last year they had to gain people's interest, so they kept winning. Remember, we was very early. Hey, man, get on board. This is going to be fun, and people started to say like, "Hey, man, let's get involved in it." This year, people were here, people were ready, and they lost people's interest. So it's not as if people did not want to be invested, or people didn't want to go to these games, or people didn't want the basketball team to succeed through their play, dropping the first game of the season, playing some ugly games through the rest of the non-con. Yes, they beat Clemson, which was an awesome win. They've been as much as an active participant in people not paying attention than anybody else. So it's on them. They can win this game, and I think people will be more likely to be invested. You lose this game, and it's going to be tough to get people to pay attention.
Yeah, and that's kind of understandable because, like I said, I don't know if you can fall to 0-4 in this particular conference. You've got something on here that we can get into a little bit later on in the morning as it pertains to the strength of the SEC and what this league really is. Is it as deep as it looks? Is it as good as it looks? Are we seeing kind of frauds? I think the league is this good, but again, you look at it, you get this game against an unranked Vanderbilt team on the road. You get Saturday against an unranked Oklahoma team on the road, but then it's a stretch of games, 8 in particular, 8 straight games against ranked teams that's bookended by Florida. You get Florida next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and quite honestly, as crazy as it sounds, because I just watched Auburn last week and watched them last night, Alabama lose. I'm not sure Florida right now is not the best team in the SEC, and you got 2 games coming up with them after this. Mississippi State feels like a bad matchup for South Carolina this particular season. I know South Carolina won both last year. Georgia feels like a bad matchup because they're big and they're physical and they're strong. They just want to knock you around. Texas A&M, I feel like Texas A&M is growing into a very overrated. Like, I look up and they've got a great number next to their name, and I'm always like, how did they get there?
Is that just because they have a cool coach?
Like, yeah, I'm like, did Buzz Williams pass out dollars or something? But
well, I mean, the big thing, everything you say leads to this. That's why this game is so important. And as I was looking at the numbers, this game is essentially the Spider-Man meme,
right?
Because they're the same team. I was looking at some things. Same amount of rebounds per game, 31.6. Essentially the same amount of points per game for their opponents, 66. All the other statistics were within 1 to 2 points of each other. So these teams are essentially the same teams, except, and this, Bill, you might be able to help me with this, except Vandy is 42 in the net and South Carolina is 93 in the net. Is that because of those early losses?
Yeah, I don't. Truthfully, I'd have to go and watch or go, I guess, very quickly here, just glance at the Vanderbilt schedule and see what's there. That North Florida loss is definitely holding them back. South Carolina also doesn't have a truly marquee non-conference win. If I look very quickly at Vanderbilt's, TCU, Virginia Tech, don't know enough about Nevada this year to really say, sometimes that's a very good win. California has got Peja Stojakovic's son. I saw that the other night. But I don't really know how great California is. They've got a win over Seton Hall, who actually is not all that good this year. They've beat LSU. Yeah, it looks like they've got a bunch more mid-tier victories than what South Carolina has.
Bill, you threw me off. You
just the Peja Stojakovic.
Oh, man, what a great name. What a great team. I love that team. Peja, Hedo Turkoglu, Bibby, Weber, Christie.
Divac.
Vladi. Oh, man, I love it. They could never get over the hump, though, man.
Yeah, you got a Peja in there. If you had...
Yeah, you ruined that one for me.
I think it's Andre is his name. Andre Stojakovic.
Oh, man, I love that team.
But, yeah, that's kind of your net ranking difference there. South Carolina doesn't have some of those very, very nice... even mid-tier. I mean, you got the great Clemson victory, but you don't have Xavier, you don't have Indiana, and on top of all that, you got the really bad loss. But, yeah, I mean, this team, and by the way, going back to last night, because I mentioned the 7 o'clock games that were so good last night, Preston, and you had the 3 games that really stood out that we talked about yesterday. Alabama gets thumped 74-64 by Mississippi at home. We talk about that home court advantage and everything. It was not on display last night. Missouri in the 9 o'clock game went down to Florida and knocked them off by a point. I still think Florida's playing the best of any team in this league. Auburn, the number 1 team in the country, and obviously the league, 88-66 victory over Mississippi State last night. And the other big matchup, number 8 Kentucky at home took down Texas A&M in that game, 81-69. But I guess to Steven's point, to my point, this team right now, you gotta kind of you got to get fan interest, because the fans are basically saying, hey, if you're no good, we're not coming. We're not going to show up. We're not the kind of fan base that's going to pull for you if you're not putting a product on the floor.
I think that's totally reasonable. If you're not playing well,
I'm not going to go.
It's kind of I don't know why. Yeah, that's kind of where you should be. I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
Especially and it's not just not playing well, but in those previous games when they were not non-competitive, that's a tough ask for fans. So, yeah, they have to win this game in order to keep people interested, invested. Because, as I stated, people came into the season wanting to support this team, wanting to go there, and they've not done great with that benefit of the doubt that people gave them going into the season.
803-404-6100. We'll continue talking a little South Carolina basketball here. Also, get into a little football. Some more honors, more accolades for the football team coming at both pivotal positions and for young players. Preston Thorne, is a foundation set? Well, we'll talk a little bit about that as we roll along. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. We are into 2025, and that means checking on all kinds of things. Maybe your health, maybe your interest rates at your house. Is now the time to refinance? Have you been following what could happen? Are there going to be any rate slashes? Well, you know what? You need to stay in touch with Jacob Crowder, the Mortgage Guru with First Palmetto Bank, and see what options are available to you, whether you're looking to move and you want to upgrade or you want to downsize, whether you're looking to refinance, whatever you're thinking about doing, now is the time to contact Jacob Crowder and see what is available, what money you can get to make that next great purchase. Something like the Community Reinvestment Product in Richland County, Blythewood, Northeast, Southeast, and the I-20 corridor, where they are offering a 4.99% interest with a 5.075 APR on a 30-year fixed mortgage. Call Jacob Crowder today. 803-719-1005.
been a little bit busier this morning on the highways. We're still working an earlier accident. Langford Road at Hardscrabble, I-77 northbound at Bluff Road, and Crystal Springs Drive at Edmond Highway also. A report of an accident there. 50 today, 26 for that overnight low, 57 tomorrow and Friday. Sunny skies each and every day before we may see some rain in the weekend, especially on Saturday. But it's not a bad start to your Wednesday morning. We're looking at 35 right now on 107.5 The Game.
.34 as we get you going Wednesday morning, January the 15th. So good news. We're almost halfway. We're right at about the halfway point of the month of January. Still one college football game left to go. Does that throw you off a little bit when you, I got to admit, sometime over the weekend I'll probably check back in and be like, oh, yeah, college football. That's right. But I'm pretty much checked out. College football to me is officially over.
Yeah, I've been on that hill, and I can understand why you would say that. Maybe around Friday, I need maybe a inspiring story or something like that about Ohio State or Notre Dame to get me back into it. And as in my mind, I was thinking, well, why couldn't they play it on Saturday? Duh, NFL.
Right.
Can't compete with them. And this is, some people would argue, the best week of NFL playoff football. So, I mean, we'll be there on Monday, but they can need to figure this out.
Yeah. It's I'm okay with it. It's just it's going to take years of training, I think, for me to realize, okay, the national championship will come towards the end of January. But with all that being said, South Carolina yesterday, Preston, gets some good news. You got 3 players yesterday that pick up some very nice awards, freshman All-Americans.
Lenora Sellers, Dylan Stewart, and Josiah Thompson. Now, those 3 obviously were huge contributors to the team this year, but it's more important because, as you stated, those are the 3 most valuable positions on the football team. Well, you're talking the NFL, money, however you want to. If you have a quarterback, you got a chance. If you have a D-end that can rush the passer, you have a chance. And if you have a lockdown tackle, you have a chance. So there is a foundation set with having these young guys who are excelling at these positions. That's a great spot to be for South Carolina moving forward.
No, you're right. Well, this is true. In your day and age, Papa, when the transfer portal and NIL weren't there, you're like, wow, these are truly foundational pieces that we should be able to at least hold in tune for the bare minimum of 2 more years. Now, I guess Lenore Sellers could go pro after next year, after this coming season. But you're like, in this day and age now, we have to look for the Garnet Trust tweet or X to know that they are committed. And just because there's one that has come out in the last 25 days, Preston, I don't know, as Mike Gundy said eloquently to start the season, he had told the agents, now's the time to stop calling. Football season is here. So when exactly is it that you feel confident your player is going to return for 2025? Do you feel like that after spring, in the days after spring practice? Do you feel like that now that you've seen a Garnet Trust tweet? But you're right. These are the foundation pieces: a left tackle, a stud defensive end, and a hopefully, I'm just saying hopefully, not calling him this, but a generational quarterback.
Yeah, and with each of them, even though they were tremendous last year, there's still a lot of opportunity for them to improve. Obviously, Norris has to get better at taking care of the ball. He has to do that. Dylan Stewart, while he had 10 tackles for loss and he had 6.5 sacks, he only had 23 tackles all year.
Okay.
So he was good when it was time to be good. Didn't have probably a lot of interest in playing the run. All of the downs. Third down, yes. Passing downs, yes. Rest of the downs, he can improve on that. And then Josiah Thompson has to get better in his run game. His pass blocking was pretty good, but there's some run blocking things. So I actually say that as good news because there's still a lot of upside and a lot of potential to be gleaned from these 3 guys.
803-404-6100. So you got that. And again, we'll continue to monitor the transfer portal. We mentioned it yesterday. South Carolina landing Brandon Cisse on Monday out of Sumter, South Carolina, was originally at North Carolina State. He comes to South Carolina after finishing last season with 28 tackles, 6 passes defended. They pick up 2 guys now in the defensive backfield in the secondary. And we talked about that yesterday because you mentioned the defensive end position, the offensive line position, quarterback. Secondary, though, looks to be the strength of the team. Maybe I guess maybe you'd say secondary and quarterback. If you're going quarter, Lenore Sellers, Aaron Noland, I'll even throw Dante Reno and Cutter Woods in that mix. But those 2 positions, I think you feel the safest about going into 2025.
Yeah, that's fine.
That fair?
Lenore's has done it, and we anticipate him getting better. There seems to be a lot of depth in the DB room, but some of them have to yet make plays on the field. We can listen to the coach's word, but we need to see that actually happen. So, yeah, that's fair. There's no problem with that. I was looking at these freshman All-American, Lenoris, Dylan, and Josiah. They joined the ranks of other South Carolina freshman All-Americans.
Okay.
Cole Simpson.
Not a bad one to follow.
Sidney Rice.
Pretty good one to follow.
Eric Norwood.
Really? I didn't realize that. Freshman All-American for Eric Norwood. Huh?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Okay, that was
Lat. Marcus Lattimore for the uninitiated.
That would make sense.
Jadavian Clowney.
It's a strong group. Really am surprised about Eric Norwood on that group. I really didn't remember Eric Norwood coming in as a freshman.
He was phenomenal.
And making that big of an impact his freshman year. You know, he's a player that we forget about, I guess, because he didn't go on to have kind of an NFL career. But the things that he did at this university.
Phenomenal.
To set himself apart, and yet we don't label him one of the true Gamecock greats. Like, he doesn't come up in conversation.
The biggest flex I saw with Eric Norwood was when he was still playing, his name was plastered on the stadium. And he still had another year left, and he held one of those records. I think it was the sack record or one of them. And I was like, dog, you are playing, and your name is still up in there. So, yeah, Eric was phenomenal. But if these dudes can be anything like these dudes, we have a good future in front of us.
Then that's kind of going back to why you say the foundation is there, and then you look at other pieces to the puzzle, guys like Amazio Bennett and Nick Harbor, maybe a Michael Smith at tight end. You also have to really like your offensive line, and we've talked about it, the competition that should be coming up between some of the transfers and some of those kind of very good recruiting classes. You got the Trovon Balls, the Marquis Andersons, the Tree Babalades, and now you got your transfers coming in as well in Boaz Stanley, Rodney Newsom Jr., and then Nick Sharp as well. So you've got competition, and part of that, one of those positions is the Josiah Thompson position, because he's going to have to battle, I think, a little bit to hold off Tree Babalade if he wants to stay there at left tackle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You can never have enough in those guys competing.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh in this morning. We'll get back into a little bit of the basketball matchup, South Carolina and Vanderbilt tonight. Also get a little bit more into the golf league or the tech-infused league, whatever you want to really label it. Texter weighs in. I can kind of agree with this. Put tomorrow's golf league on ESPN 8.
Okay.
The Ocho.
All right.
So we'll go back down that path a little bit here on a Wednesday morning. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen, you're listening to the early game. Yeah, it's going to be one of those days where nice day. I think it's actually even supposed to warm up a little bit, but I think it's not supposed to be ridiculous. No, we don't need this. Don't send in more names for the TGL. Texter weighs in Top Golf League.
Yeah, basically.
we don't need more of these. We've already got enough names. We can't figure out what exactly that league is. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. I want to remind you we will be at Pro Swing for some virtual golf ourselves on Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 4708. I'll get it out correctly. 4708. Forest Drive over in Columbia. You can, even though it'll be bright and early in the morning, you can stop by, say hello, see us, hang out for a few minutes, talk with us about the basketball game coming up this weekend, and even about the women's basketball game that'll be on Thursday night. But we will be out at Pro Swing again, 4708 Forest Drive over in Columbia this coming Friday for a little virtual golf ourselves. We'll be with our buddies from Pro Swing and hang out. And we will be broadcasting, not Preston and I, but the station as a whole will be broadcasting all day long, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Speaking of the golf league, you need to check it out because I will be interested to hear your. I feel like I'm going to go ahead and tell you and maybe influence your decision. You're going to watch 10 minutes of this and be like, nah, which I can totally understand from people like that. But you get this. Golf is in a very odd spot right now. It feels like it continues to wane in interest, except for the majors. I don't think the majors are ever going to change. But with the PGA and LIV, and now you got this thing, which is supposed to be entertainment purposes really only, it feels like it's now missing its mark with its audience.
That's the thing, though, because we say that it's waning in interest, kind of, but then when you look at the numbers on some of these YouTube channels and you look at all these different things that are happening, people are more interested in that. So are they not interested in the institution or establishment of golf? Is the game growing? These are all questions I think are worth asking, but yeah, you would think it feels like the game is waning, but then when you see the numbers on these YouTube channels, I don't know. It's everywhere.
Well, that's the YouTube channel. But again, and this is part of sports as a whole, to which I think we are now, because of social media, because of YouTube, kind of like what you said, being able to see inside the personalities. And Jen, Jen has followed me on the roller coaster ride of, do I like Bryson DeChambeau? Do I dislike Bryson DeChambeau? I've been back and forth. I've called him Bryson Boo-Boo because he whines all the time. But Preston, to your point, I think he's developing a very good fan base, a stronger than average following, if you will, because of what Jen said us the other day, where he's got his YouTube channel and he's hitting trick shots over his house and trying to do things, and he's going out. He's got all these little kind of, I don't want to say games. That's unfair to what he does, but these little contests and challenges he does. Bryson DeChambeau is a guy who's developing himself a personality and a following, not because of what he does actually on the course, but what he does in the social media YouTube kind of area.
I mean, even for that particular stunt, it was perfect. Every day he's supposed to hit a shot over his house to try and make the shot. And the way social media works is, if that's on your feed, every day it shows you the shot. Then you miss it. He misses it, and then you come back tomorrow, and it's another shot. And it was a perfect. Even if you're not interested in it, if your algorithm somehow gets you there, you're locked in because you see all these balls. And then the cool thing about it is they didn't let the balls leave around the green. So even if he made a good shot, but he hit a ball, it wouldn't go in. And fortunately or unfortunately, they invited somebody on and they made it very quickly.
Yeah, that was craziness. Because he said it was like 134 or 137 shots that he tried to make, and the dude did it in like 5.
Yeah. So
but that's fun. It was and people are interested. Yep.
It was interesting.
So, yeah, and that's people get more into it. And, look, I think the question will be also next is how many other – you see it in some spaces. What you really see is more with football and basketball players doing the podcast, right? Like, we're seeing more and more of that, whether it's stupid or whether it is a perfect example of where we were in 2024. Last year, Draymond Green getting ejected from a game, going directly to the locker room and doing a podcast in the locker room while the game was still going on is what these athletes do now to show us that side of it. And that's where I do think the golf league, if they can kind of figure it out, or tomorrow's golf league, whatever we're calling it, if they can kind of figure it out, it does open the door to go, ooh, I like that guy a little bit more. Yeah, I'll check him out when he's playing in the Sony Open or some random tournament that's not the Masters, U.S. Open, the Open, or the PGA Championship.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to be here, because I'm not a huge fan of golf, but I would be a fan of somebody that I found interest in their personality, or maybe I don't want to say character, but the guy that whoever that person is, I could see myself wanting to tune in to watch a specific player and follow them around throughout the season. So, yeah, that can work, and you could draw me in through the content that you create.
803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in. Again, tonight, 5:30 pregame, South Carolina and Vanderbilt right here, 107.5 the game in Columbia, 100.3 the game in Myrtle Beach. Tip-off will be 6 o'clock for that game, and we'll talk more about that coming up in hour number 2. But again, looking around the SEC last night, Preston, and this will be part of our discussion. Last night you had kind of the big night. You had 3 top 25 battles going on. They were all in the 7 o'clock window, same time as the tomorrow's golf league. Number 1, Auburn. No problem without Jonte. What is it? How do you say it? How do I say it? All of a sudden, I kind of forgot it. But without maybe the nation's best player in Deontay Broome. Last night, 88-66 for them, no problem. Alabama loses at home. I don't know if that changes your opinion of Alabama, or if that changes your opinion of Mississippi more. Mississippi and Chris Beard go in. Mississippi ranked 21st, go in and knock off number 4 Alabama, 74-64. And then you had, again, in that 7 o'clock window, number 11 Texas A&M at number 8 Kentucky. Kentucky wins 81-69. The upset of the night came with Missouri going on the road to the O-Dome to take on number 5 Florida and knocking them off 83-82.
Well, it just goes to this whole conversation. SEC. We think it's deep. Other people say that it's mid. There's an argument to be made on both sides. Is the ceiling that high? Or is everybody just kind of in the middle?
NCAA tournament will tell us. It'll tell us. Also, one other game from last night. I don't know if this makes you smile. I don't know if this makes you indifferent. John Calipari in Arkansas. They go to LSU.
Tell me they lost.
They lost.
Yes.
John Calipari now 0-4 in Arkansas.
And I don't know what that's about, because I think I like Cal personally. I don't mind seeing him lose.
The few times I hung out with him, like in the crowd settings there at AAU tournaments, he's honestly what you expect. Pretty good guy with a massively inflated ego.
He should.
Like not
you
afraid.
You guys got along pretty well.
Well, he had a couple more dollars than I did, especially back then. Let's just say we were eating from different menus when we went to the lunch breaks there. One of us was getting the $1.50 soda and hot dog, and one of us was getting the fine Italian food. But he was funny. I watched actually years ago some fun conversations between him and Frank Martin going back and forth. Always entertaining when I'd see those two, but 0-4. Not sure how the people in Fayetteville feel about that. We'll continue on with some South Carolina Vanderbilt basketball. Also, get into a little bit of fake injuries. Coach is trying to change the rule. We'll tell you about it. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air. Whereas we start to move toward the spring and the summer, you got to think about that heating and air unit. How old is it? Is it working properly? Do you need a brand new heating and air unit? Well, let me tell you, AAA Heating and Air continues to be the leader in making sure that you get not only the absolute best heating and air unit available, but you get the absolute best deal possible. That's right. Still, AAA Heating and Air is having their incredible sale going on. Right now, you call AAA Heating and Air, and if you make a purchase, you'll have no interest and no payments until January of 2026. You heard that right. January of 2026. Call AAA Heating and Air today, 803-677-1500. Again, that's 803-677-1500. You can also get a $1,500 buyback instant rebate. So call AAA Heating and Air today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
In Lexington, Corley Mill Road, kind of in front of River Bluff, there's been a car versus deer incident as you're heading towards 378, so expect a little bit of a slowdown there. Also have a report of a tie-up Crystal Springs Drive at Edmond Highway, I-77 northbound at Bluff Road. Also Langford Road at Hardscrabble, still working that earlier tie-up. 50 today, 57 tomorrow and Friday. Sunny skies really throughout the remainder of the week. Our overnight lows between 26 and 30, so still a little bit cooler in the mornings. The rain chances increase dramatically for Saturday and a little bit on Sunday. But right now, looking at 35 on 107.5 The Game.
$7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Get the kids up, get them out of bed, get them dressed warmly, and send them off to school, Preston Thorne, as we continue to trek our way through the month of January, the post-Christmas kind of just malaise that comes along with it. How are teachers normally doing about mid-month now? About a week and a half fully back into school, and now you're starting to learn your classes, starting to get to know the kids, and starting to maybe, as you said, I think a few weeks ago, regret maybe not enjoying the previous semester as much. Maybe now you're thrilled that the previous semester is gone. You're like, oh, this is a good group.
It can go either way. It really can. Like, you might be like, man, that last group, now that I see this new group, they were a lot of good times. Also, you could be like, glad they're gone. And that's why I give so much props to elementary school teachers. You got to stay with them all year. And that's rough. So shout out to elementary school teachers, but high school, you get a chance to kind of cycle them in and out. And after about 6 months with each other, we're good.
There you go.
We can all move on from each other. It's fine.
And maybe for some of y'all out there, also this morning, you're looking around like, oh, man, some of the coworkers have left. They've gone on. Now I got this new batch of coworkers. What do we do? What do we do now? I don't know how to work.
The boss man over the road. Again, there's new rules.
Jeremiah. Now people, there might be some workers over there at the athletic department like, man, I haven't been to the office at 8 a.m. 10 straight days in the last 15 years. This is wearing on me. What's wearing on me mid-January?
Yeah, what if he's like a big health guy and he's like, he's
made changes to the snacks?
Made changes to the snacks or something like that. It's like, oh, God, this guy. You never know, man. Things change. That's what when the boss changes, it's like, what? Everybody gets a little nervous.
It used to be Pizza Friday. Now it's Salad Friday.
Yeah, you're like, oh, man.
So get up and get going here on your Friday morning as we get you rolling along. Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, getting you ready for tonight's basketball game, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Again, 5:30 pregame, 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock tip-off time. You can hear it on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And Preston's question is, as we go into hour number 2, the SEC, deep, mediocre? Where do you go with this as you start to now really fine-tune your basketball viewing, Preston, for this year?
Well, you just made a statement last segment. You said, we'll find out in the postseason. We'll find out during the NCAA tournament if the SEC is any good, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that looked to me. Now, I'm not going to say that this is the best way to judge it, but that is how it gets judged. It's kind of like bowl season. Whether it's fair or unfair, people are judging the SEC by bowl season.
That's where I'm going with it. And so I feel like we're having the same argument about the SEC, whereas people who are pro-SEC, like I am, obviously, oh, yeah, man, any given night, anybody can beat anybody. This league is so deep. Doesn't matter who. Every night's a tough battle. But then people on the outside are looking and saying, like, maybe y'all are not that good. Maybe y'all are just all mid. Maybe you all are average, and that's why everybody can beat everybody. So when you hear that statement of saying, as Lane Kiffin said, it's just different, maybe – or maybe everybody's average. I don't know how to justify this. And maybe we have to wait till the postseason. But if we was going by that argument, based on the SEC's postseason performance in the bowl season, then the SEC was not very good this year.
Kentucky Joe weighs in. I'll just read some of this. He says, at some point, 13 of 16 SEC teams have been ranked in the top 25. Unbelievable competition each game. Would you rather be a Kentucky or Arkansas coached team right now? If the same South Carolina team that played Auburn shows up against Vandy tonight, they should win another tough-fought game, hopefully giving them confidence to make a run. And that's to the – I think the league is – I go with it's deep and it's good.
Okay.
Like, it's deep and it's really good. I mean, they've been very good. Look – I don't know the updated number on this, but I know in mid-December, the SEC against the ACC was something like 32-4. They have held their own in non-conference matchups by and large. Alabama's got a couple really nice ones. Kentucky's got a couple really nice ones. The SEC non-conference, but I don't think anybody will care what you did in November and December. They're going to look at it, what do you do when we get to March in those one-game scenarios? How many teams do you get to the Sweet 16? How many do you have in the Elite Eight? Do you have half of the Final Four field? You look at the net rankings that are out there. The SEC has 3 of the top 5. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means at all, but Auburn is number 1 in the net rankings. This is actually through Monday night. But Auburn is number 1 in the net rankings, Tennessee 4, and Florida 5. Alabama is number 7 in that rankings. Duke 2, Houston 3, Iowa State 6, and Kansas 8 is kind of how that rounds out.
So, yes, there's a lot of people ranked. A lot of people will end up playing. The argument for the other side, and I'll just keep presenting the other side of this argument, is that if you're talking about national championships, and just looked at it, Kentucky Joe would know this, since 2012, SEC has not won a national championship. That's a long time ago. How do you claim national dominance when you haven't had a team go and win that thing? Now, this is a relatively recent phenomenon. I get that. But that's a long time ago to win a championship.
Oh, no. This is right now a one-off, a one-year type deal where we've seen the rise of – the SEC has gradually gotten better in basketball. I mean, think about this. There's likely going to be, if you go by the prognostications, somewhere between 11 and 13 SEC teams are projected to be in the NCAA tournament. I'll see if I can get Lenardi's bracketology back up real quick here and just see what his Monday projection was. But at this point in time, you're basically really talking about upwards of about 10. He's got 11. He's got 11 SEC teams, with Arkansas being the first team out. Now, this was as of yesterday. Arkansas being the first team out. But hold on, because here's where I'm going with this. I want you to think about the difference. South Carolina, somebody correct me on the year possibly, but I think it was 09 or 10. Darren Horn's team went 21-10. Because this isn't just, you said 2012, but you can go further back than that. Darren Horn's team, I believe, went 21-10 in his very first year as South Carolina basketball coach, claimed a share of the East, if you will, along with Tennessee. I don't think we ever saw that trophy. But the bottom line is only 3 teams that year, and South Carolina was not one of only 3 teams got into the SEC tournament. And it was at that time that the SEC started going, maybe we have a basketball problem. We've got to upgrade this thing. And it did get better through that stretch you just talked about, but they haven't had teams that have been quite good enough to go win the national championship. Kentucky had a couple under John Calipari, but they would fall on their face somewhere in the NCAA tournament.
You just said that Lenardi had Arkansas getting one of their,
and that was
the last one in.
That was prior. He posted this yesterday. Let's see if it's gonna have time. He posted it yesterday morning, 10:30 a.m. So that's pre loss to LSU last night.
But even pre-loss to LSU, they were 0-3 before that, right? So now they're 0-4, but before that they were 0-3. So what makes Arkansas any different than us or any other team that hasn't won an SEC game yet? Why would they be there? Is it just because it's Cal?
You're sending me down a path I've not fully gotten into because I don't really pay attention to this until the start of February. But just glancing, I'm trying to find Arkansas. So, by the way, I said 11, right? Arkansas was the first team out. The fourth team out, according to Lenardi, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth team out, Vanderbilt. And you mentioned Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt, obviously, with a net ranking, this is what they use now, a net ranking of 42. Vanderbilt right now is 1-2 in quad one games. I'm just looking at the NCAA website here. It does not break these down by which teams. 2-1 in the quad two games, 3-0 and 7-0 in quad three and quad four. South Carolina, you mentioned, is in the 80s. South Carolina right now. South Carolina is actually 93 right now. And South Carolina, what's holding South Carolina back? And this is what a lot of people said was going to happen, and what's really hard to overcome. In quad four games, which basically is you better win or else you're in a lot of trouble. South Carolina 6-1, and we know who that one is.
Yeah, and it was the first game of the season. So when you're talking about people maybe not necessarily being invested or people being interested, you lost a quad four game one. That's difficult to overcome.
Also, by the way, South Carolina is just 1-5 in the quad one or quad two games, 0-4 against quad one. So remember we talked about, like, hey, Xavier, you might need to win that. Indiana would be a big game. Obviously, you've had the SEC games, but South Carolina 1-5 in those quad 1 and 2 games, giving them an opportunity to maybe say move up in the net rankings. You mentioned Arkansas. Arkansas is 49. Interesting number here. I mentioned South Carolina 1-5 in quad 1 and 2 games. Arkansas 1-5 in quad 1 and 2 games. Difference there is all 5 are quad one game. All 6 are quad one games. So you see, that's why, to be honest, we went down a path there. That's why I don't get into this stuff too much just yet until more of the beginning of February, because you have a little bit more, you have a larger sample size of what you're choosing from.
Yeah, my big statement is this was a lot more fun last year.
Yeah, you didn't see it. It's a radio show, but we have a live stream. You can go to We Fist Bumped, which is why we told you last year. This point last year, that's why I got into I haven't even looked. I couldn't even tell you what's going on in the bracketology.
It's a lot more fun.
Last year, I loved the bracketology. I was fully invested, all in. And while we were so big on telling you, hey, look at it. Look at your matchups. Envision who could be the second round game, the Sweet 16 game. That's why we told you, because this year, got a feeling we won't be doing that. 803-404-6100. We'll come back, get back into some college football. Coaches looking to change some rules out there, including faking injuries. We'll talk with Preston Thorne about that. You're listening to The Early Game. Bill Gunner for Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. And now that we're into 2025, are you reminiscing on the old car rides and that old vehicle you have? Or are you dreaming about the new vehicle that you can have? Because at Love Chevrolet right now, there is no better time than to go out and visit their entire lineup of award-winning vehicles. That's right. No other dealership in the Midlands has more brand new Chevrolets on the lot than at Love Chevrolet. I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, where you're guaranteed to find the color, style, and features you've been looking for, along with the New Year's savings and low price guarantee that the folks at Love Chevrolet always have for you. Want to find out more? Go visit them. Again, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or you can check them out on the web, lovechevy.com. But get out to Love Chevrolet today, and together, let's drive.
Could still be a little bit of a slowdown there. Corley Mill Road heading towards 378 in front of River Bluff High School. Car versus deer incident there. Also still working I-77 southbound at Two Notch Road, and also disabled vehicle I-77 southbound at Forest Drive. So things getting a little bit better out there, but still a few slowdowns to be mindful of. 50 for the high today, 57 tomorrow. Overnight tonight, about 26. Overnight low Thursday into Friday will be about 31. Friday's high 57. So we're going to be sunny through Friday before the rounds of rain kick in on Saturday. 35 right now.
So how do you stop players, coaches, teams from faking injuries, Preston Thorne? How do we try and do away with something that I think legitimately – now, let me just say this, because this is a funny conversation to have, and we got to get Tony in. And we'll have Tony in back in here in the next several weeks. Soccer has the reputation for going down in a heap, rolling around, and then magically hopping back up and being perfectly fine.
Uh-huh.
And as I've tried to explain, if you don't really know the game of soccer that well, some of that it's acting because you're trying to draw a penalty on the opposition. And not only are you trying to draw a penalty, you're trying to draw a red card or a yellow card to make the injury look more sustained. No, we've seen this flopping in football when guys get sneezed on and it looks like they got shot from the press box.
Garrett Nussmeier.
Yes. So, but with that being said, the real pandemic, the real issue is guys going back to the line of scrimmage, looking over the sideline, and all of a sudden getting the signal and going down like we saw in the South Carolina-Illinois game, and as well as we've seen it not just in South Carolina, Mississippi, but in several of Mississippi's games.
You said they get the signal. They get the signal from
a coach. That's what I'm saying. This is not.
So there are a bunch of coaches at a convention trying to figure out how to stop fake injuries. They're all looking around like, I don't know how we stop this. This is a travesty. We can't have this in the game anymore.
But are all the coaches also? I don't do that.
We got to stop them because
exactly.
They do it.
My darn assistants, man.
Yeah, it's those guys over there.
On Monday in a conference room in Charlotte, North Carolina, several coaches explored one of the hottest hot-button topics in the college football world, faking injuries. The article from Yahoo Sports, it says, in fact, the meeting even featured in-game clips of players allegedly dropping to the field in the middle of a drive in an effort to defensively to slow an offense's momentum and offensively to get to better gather the next play call.
To let you know how credible all of this is and how much of a sham this is, I saw an article with Lane Kiffin quoted as saying, yeah, I'm all for it. We need to stop this. Lane Kiffin, one of the most egregious offenders of this. We saw it here personally. We saw it. We know that he's about this. And he's like, yeah, it really hurts us because we're a tempo offense and teams do it to us all the time.
Couple, look, we're all going to throw out recommendations, right?
Uh-huh.
Until it affects your team. And then you're like, I don't know. Because one of the recommendations that I think most of us kind of agreed with is, hey, if a guy goes down with an injury, he's out for that drive. Now, that wouldn't prevent them from, say, putting in the third stringer or walk-on who magically goes, runs a go route, and as he's coming back, pulled a hammy, coach.
Oh, so bad that the third string guy can't go in for the rest of the drive. He went in, got hurt.
But Hugh Freeze said it's all fine until it's your quarterback that goes out for a full drive. Billy Napier, who was weighed in on this, I just don't think we can do that.
Yeah, and if you read these articles, seems like the SEC coaches are ardently against any sort of retribution for this happening.
The SEC coaches are leading the way in this in terms of, we got to stop it. We still use it. It's part of our game strategy. because as the article says, the injury situation grew so serious in the SEC that Commissioner Greg Sankey in the middle of the season had to issue a memo to league members that fined coaches if their teams were charged with faking injuries.
Yeah, and now you're expecting the coaches to police themselves. It's not going to happen.
CB Brett Bielema for details.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So they can raise all the fuss they want about, we need to stop this. Well, who's we?
Billy Napier was the one who was used the most in this article. Billy Napier saying, why don't we just stop all of it? It's ruining the game.
What?
Now, to my knowledge, Florida's not been accused of, I could be wrong on this, but Billy Napier, the voice of reason.
Yeah, and Lane Kiffin said the same thing. He's like, we got to stop this. Brett Bielema says that, it's not a good thing.
So we discuss it. All right, coaches don't want to lose a player for a whole drive. I get it. Somebody gets hurt. Your quarterback goes down, gets popped in the ribs, loses his wind. But what is the answer to it? It's easy to say, well, we should stop it. It's easy to bang the table and bang the gavel and say we got to stop it. Yeah, we all agree with that. What is it? What punishment is severe but not too severe?
It needs to be too severe.
Is that where you go?
Yeah, yes. This is a scourge on the game. This is unethical. This is not what we want for the game. It needs to be as severe as possible. But those people who are policing themselves, they won't do it to themselves. So this is why Greg Sankey or a college football commissioner would need to step in, because how could you expect the criminals to police themselves? It's not going to happen.
So do you like that? Is this indeed a situation where you go, okay, look, I'm sorry. Even if it's a real injury, even if your lineman gets...
If it's a real injury, you should be out for the rest of the series anyway. If you are laying on the ground, you should be done for the series. We might have to go back to old school. Like, unless you're paralyzed, bro, you got to get up. That was the rule in the past. Now
let's retell your story real quick. You suffered a significant injury, and you held yourself near and dear to
my proudest accomplishment. I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus, all of that. Hopped off the field because somewhere in the back of my mind, Coach McCurry and John McKissick was saying, "Boy, unless you're paralyzed, get up off the ground."
Wow.
But we've changed. For safety purposes, you want to take care of everybody, so players lay on the ground so that the trainers can go out there in the system so that nothing happens. These coaches have taken advantage of that, and now that's why we are where we are now.
803-404-6100. Is penalizing a player for an entire series,
get him out? He's hurt.
Too much.
He's so with player safety.
And I'm okay with this. I'm wondering if everybody, because
we're just looking out for the players. We don't want them to rush back into the game if they're injured.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
I'm just curious, in their curriculums, I'm sure they take business classes and all that. Are we seeing an increase on football players taking like a media or like a drama class maybe? Are they learning a little bit more?
I would say no, because some of these performances are terrible.
Well, yeah.
When they're faking these injuries.
Did say they were doing well in the classes, but yeah. And like the training, I guess the training staff just has to keep a very straight face.
To me, that's the real ethical conundrum, because the training staffs are charged with taking care of the athletes. And we trust what they say. If they're in cahoots with these fake injuries, then I can't trust anything else you're doing with these players. But again, these coaches are not going to stop themselves from doing it.
It goes deep now. Now we're all the way down to the training staffs and what they're doing.
Seriously, I watch their faces more than anything.
They're part of it too.
All right. 803-404-6100.
Find the trainers.
So, again,
find the coaches.
We discussed this, but now we all try to come, okay, what is the proper way to implement this to go about doing it? And so let me read a couple of these, and I'll disagree with it. Number one, texter weighs in, says, find the coaches and the players, repeat offenders get suspensions. But I think it's not something that you have to do after the game. I'm with you, Press. This has got to occur in game, and it's got to be across the board, injuries and non-injuries, and as we say, fake injuries, because that's what it is. Quarterback gets hurt. He gets he's running for a first down. He dives on the ball. He's out of wind. Now, I guess you could say if you call wasn't there a rule? I think this was a rule. I thought this was a rule. If a guy comes out and you call timeout, he can come back in.
Yeah, with the helmet rule or something like that.
Okay. KT from Lexington goes with automatic first down with no penalty yards. But again, I think this has to be all-encompassing where you're not asking referees to decide what's a fake injury and what's not.
Right.
It's just dude's down, coaching staff had to come out and help him.
Right. Because now, again, we don't want to get into that with the referees getting extra responsibilities on what they didn't have. And I don't think it should affect actual gameplay.
See, Jeff goes with only call it on the defense. Well, no, offenses are doing it to slow down the game if they need a little extra time to get a play call right, to stop the clock for a few seconds, to have the quarterback go over.
Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Yep. We've seen him do that where a running back magically fell down in the backfield. 803-404-6100. Timbo does weigh in on something else that's need to fix the delay of subs. Also, give the defense 8 seconds to get players on the field after the offense has sent their players on. That is another one that they'll probably have to do. Jay weighs in with players out for the half if you have an injury. So, see, he goes half, you go drive.
I'm not opposed to making this as severe as possible, but half is a long time.
Especially if it's like the first series, you know, as opposed to because all of a sudden you get to the last series. And again, coaches are making a lot of money. These are you might think watching some play calls and watching things, these are dumb people. They're smart people. You get to the end of a 9, 10, 11 play drive, and all of a sudden maybe that player is gassed and you're already figuring they're going to be out. I could also see a scenario where you're like, oh, it's the end of the drive. Hey, fall down. We're going to get a sub in for you anyway and play the last 20 yards with that guy.
Yeah, you proposed the rule in front of the room of the computer hackers are right there. You're trying to make the security system safe, and the hackers are right there in the building.
Helping you make it. Yeah.
They're not going to help.
803-404-6100. I see you out there on the phone lines. We'll get to you when we come back. Get us more of these text messages. You're listening to the early game.
Present here for the good folks at QC Kinetics. Listen, do you want to go into this year the same as you went into last year with the achy joints, pain in your hips, pain in your knees, your back, your shoulders? Well, call the good folks at QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine and joint preservation. You can revitalize your joints with advanced orthobiologic treatments at QC Kinetics. That means no steroids, no drugs, and no surgery. This is the future of medicine using natural solutions like PRP to attack the pain from arthritis. So if you want to learn more about how you can refresh your joints and get lasting relief with these amazing treatments, call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. Deal with joint pain now so you can make the most of the new year. Call QC Kinetics at 803-281-6860. That's QC Kinetics at 803-281-6860.
Murray Lindler Road at Chapin Road in the Chapin area. There's a report of an accident there. And as far as accident in Lexington, still in front of River Bluff. They're trying to get things cleaned up as you're on Courtly Mill Road heading towards 378. There was a car versus deer incident. And forecast-wise, looking pretty nice for the remainder of the week. Sunny skies through Friday, 50 today, 57 tomorrow and Friday. Those overnight lows around 30 or so. By Saturday, we're looking for rounds of rain, about a 90% chance, and we'll have a high of about 54 currently, sitting at fair skies and 35.
All right, so while we're trying to fix the injury issues, we've got another one that we'll get to in just a second. A couple more real quick off of the text line. Chad from Irmo says, this is extreme, and thank you for warning me about that. This is all these fake injuries are to save timeouts and slow the game. So if you have a player go down that requires the training staff to come on the field, either cost you a timeout or a 5-yard delay of game penalty. Coach's choice.
Ooh, I like the coach's choice at this. Like, it's third and 15. What do we do? Third and 20 now. Do we need the timeout for the end of the game?
Costs you a timeout or a 5-yard delay game? That's actually good.
We're workshopping something.
You know what? That's actually a good one because you're basically saying if you're training staff, you better be hurt. And we can have the video of Preston Thorne hopping off one-legged, saying, look, this guy got off the field. You, too, can get off the field.
Yeah. You can get off the field majority of the time, for sure. If it's a head or neck injury, stay down. But everything else, arm, again, I always talk about this one player that I had that I coached, and he laid on the ground. He's, my finger.
Stop.
One of my coaches, we talk about that at least quarterly. And so, yes.
I mean, I'm sure it hurt.
Anything upper body, you can get up.
Yeah.
Kind of lower body, too.
803-404. 6100. Let's get out to the phone lines. Tom wants to weigh in this morning. Tom, how you doing? What's on your mind?
I'm doing good. The problem I see is if coaches kind of pressure these players into not being injured to prevent any negative impact on an offensive drive or whatever, what if a player's really hurt, but the coach is, no, get up. He's going to hire a lawyer. And I don't want to, and you know the way the world works. And Preston, you can relate to this. I don't know what you do if you're a ref. It's like at school, these kids who have to go to the bathroom all the time. Well, you have to let them go because what if they really need to go and the consequences of that? But I don't see how you're going to solve this problem if you if you penalize the team and force a coach to probably have to pressure the kid. So even if you are hurt, you can't be hurt. Does that make sense? Absolutely.
I think that's a good and fair point, and I think your bathroom analogy is fair because as a teacher, if a student has to go to the bathroom, you're like, what am I do? You know, there's really not a lot of wiggle room in that, and there could be this issue. And this is the problem when you introduce these unethical tactics into the game because now you have all of these other things around it. So yeah, that could possibly be an issue.
Yeah, I guess having not played and you knowing when you're hurt, you're hurt. I don't know what guys kind of lay on the ground for. I played basketball and rolled an ankle significantly twice, and the second one, I think Bailey Harris just dragged me off to I was over kind of by the half court line and the out of bounds line, and I believe they just dragged me off the court and they kept about scrimmaging that practice while I kind of rolled around on the side.
Move the drill.
And I watched Dawn Staley do that one time, move her drill from one end of the court to the other. But I say that because when you're hurt, you're hurt. We've watched some of these guys. It's pretty clear, like which one is which, right? Like who's legitimately hurt where they go to the training tent and they're out for a significant number of times as opposed to when we've seen players all of a sudden flop and fall down. And that's kind of the other thing. It hadn't been like a guy laying on the ground that, and I know what Tom is saying, but most of the time when a play ends and the guy's still on the ground, player's hurt. When a player gets up, walks back, kind of looks over, and when they've faked injuries, you can tell. This hasn't, to me, it almost hasn't. You haven't even had to be a good actor because you can just flat tell.
Also, I want to add on to this. Hey, head coaches, we don't need you to go out there for everybody that's hurt. Like if the dude has a cramp or a sprained ankle, you don't need to go out there and check on him. Get word that he's okay. Get him off the field. He'll be fine. Like that also became a thing where the coaches were trying to virtue signal each other. Like, I really care about my players because he's hurt. Let me go check on him. You don't have to do that. He's okay. Get him off the field. Get him off the court.
That's a good point, too. Like, you've got technically 10 other teammates that can kind of go over and be like, hey, man, can we get you off the field? Can you get off the field? Like, there's things to it. Now, what a lot of this has to do with is slowing down, hurry-up offenses that get into rhythm. That's the point. And I think that's where you're trying to draw the line on this.
Yeah, and that's, again, all of this is because everybody's trying to find some gray area to operate to try and gain any type of advantage they can, whether that's the hurry-up offenses, whether that's the defenses substituting now. Then it's the fake injuries. Now, let's say if this proposal did go through, it would be a random player getting hurt, never to return again, and that he would get the game ball for his contribution to the team. It can happen. The coaches are smart. Again, I keep saying the same analogy. The robbers are always going to be a step ahead of the police.
Right.
But in this case, the robbers are trying to be the police. So what are we doing? It's not going to work.
Not only are faking injuries an issue, rating someone else's roster is an issue. This is Trent Dilfer joining one of our sister stations, W Jocks, down in Birmingham, on watching his team being gutted via NIL. Here's Trent Dilfer talking earlier this week.
Big part of this in our conference, again, not going to use schools. We have 2 teams that will go to our roster and sign double or triple what these guys can make on our roster and make them backups on their roster so that we can't have them. That's happening in our conference.
Don't the
Aw, poor Trenny Poo. Feel bad for you, Trent. Aw.
Let's start with this. Let's just start with this.
You're taking our
prior. Trent Dilfer's been a very interesting guy. He's been an NFL analyst for ESPN. He did the Elite 11 camps. He was kind of the head coach of the Elite 11 camps. He's been a talking head.
Yes, he has.
He will probably, I think, still go down as one of the worst quarterbacks. And he's a good quarterback, but probably still one of the worst quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl, which it's pretty well known that he literally was the quarterback and that was it. Like, take the snaps because somebody on our roster has to know how to take a snap. We have a defense over here that's going to win the Super Bowl. But what did you feel about Trent Dilfer before taking a head football coaching job?
This is a great question, Bill, because it really colors everything that he says afterwards, because I was not a fan of Trent.
Okay.
Because of something, I don't know. But no, I was not a fan of him.
Because I've met him, I've dealt with him when he was doing this kind of stuff and with recruiting and everything, and smartest guy in the room syndrome. And he's 7-17
definitely.
at UAB. So it can't be his fault.
Right.
It can't be his fault that UAB is 7-17. It's clearly everybody else's fault, and he's done really well. But at the end of the year, and maybe it does legitimately happen to some extent. But yes, I was going to say, because how you view Trent Dilfer, who's been around and is kind of would be perfect for these first take shows and for everything where he's just spouting off stuff and acting like he knows everything, because that's what I hear when I hear that.
Well, here's my issue with it. If it's such a big problem, Trent, then tell us the 2 schools. If you have such an issue, don't go on here and say, well, there are 2 schools that are kind of doing it, but I'm not going to say any names. Say names if it's such an issue to you. If it's such an affront to the game, call these teams out so that everybody else can know and be put on notice. Second, what's the problem with the kid making more money? How is that an issue? You have an issue with players going to make more money? Trent, didn't you try to do that for your whole career as a very mediocre quarterback? you've managed to parlay that mediocre career into a head coaching job, which you were nowhere near qualified for.
Right. The only thing I'll say for Trent Dilfer, I do understand some of it. I mean, let's be honest. When you get cut by ESPN, when you get dismissed, fired, and they hire Rex Ryan as your replacement.
I like Sexy Racy. That's my guy.
You got to be looking at him, looking at you going, come on. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 2. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner and the family have been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And it is that history that is your assurance that if you need work done to your home, to your business, to keep your operation dry and running, Mid-State Roofing will provide proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility. And they're going to do it that is both safe and pleasing to your operation. So again, whether you're home or your business, Mid-State Roofing is there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whether it is an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee, they are ready to help you. 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. You can also visit them on the web for more information, midstateroofing.com. But you know what they say, if you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Give them a phone call, 803-356-1919.
a little bit like I saw Jahan Dotson said something like defending AJ, and I thought that was awesome too. Just another opportunity, another example of our teammates defending each other. That we don't do any research to figure out how long he's been doing it, why he's doing it, what he's reading. I mean, he's not reading a romance novel on the sideline, whatever he's, we don't do any research, and we jump to a conclusion of, he must be disgruntled. That to me is lazy, and everyone needs to figure out why he's doing it before they jump to judgment on the man, because the man, A.J. Brown, is a great person. The man, A.J. Brown, is the best receiver that, and I'll say it without hesitation, is the best receiver that this city's ever seen. The man, A.J. Brown, is one of the best teammates that in the world to his guys. Not just the best receiver, one of the best teammates. This guy is top notch. There's a reason he's done all the things he can do, and I love A.J. Brown. And it's hard for me to watch when people are getting on him without doing the proper research of who the man is and what he's doing in the first place.
That is the voice of Nick Sirianni, who, in an effort, number one, to defend A.J. Brown, and we'll get to that in just a second, decided to also take stabs at Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, which I guess you could throw up there.
Mike Quick, T.O.
T.O. up there by inferring that
Fred Barnett. Well,
if you want to really go into it, Harold Carmichael, Pete Retzlaff, Mike Quick, Zach Ertz, Pete Philos. Anyway, you get the point. A.J. Brown was caught reading a book on the sideline in the victory. Now, the book, this was in the fourth quarter, and A.J. Brown in a 22-10 victory only had one catch for 10 yards. The book, Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy.
Uh-huh.
You've played football. What's some of the quirkiest things you've ever seen on the sideline that guys do?
I've never seen that. I've seen people oiling themselves up and down to look good on camera. I've seen people eating things that you wouldn't assume that somebody would eat as they go into a game, but never seen somebody reading a book. That's a first.
What is your reaction as a football player? Now, that's Nick Sirianni defending him. And again, A.J. Brown says, it gives me a sense of peace. That's a book I bring every single game. My teammates call it a recipe. That's the first time I've heard y'all get on me. Y'all got me on camera. That's not the first game. I got a lot of points. In there. So A.J. Brown admits this is something he does, which football's an odd. When you start to break some things down in this new age of football, it's an odd sport. Got to do things for mental health, for physical health. You just mentioned eating things that maybe you'd be like, But what would you take away from looking over and seeing your wide receiver or your defensive end next to you reading a book?
That'd be really interesting to see. I mean, obviously, this is something that he's done. What he was saying is that he uses the book to regulate his emotions, to calm himself. Maybe he does mantras that he has out of this book. I think I would say whatever gets him to perform well is fine with me. It's not a good look, though, I will say.
Why is it not a good look? I'm interested to hear your football because I have no idea. Like, if I saw this occurring in a game.
Because just the act of reading makes you look very much not interested in anything else that's going on. Very similar to how they have the fan reading in the stands, like at the Florida State game, or you have the other thing. Just reading a book while everything else is happening around you, it feels like you're a little bit disconnected from what's happening here. But that's not what he was saying. So, whatever. Okay. I'll say this. If Nick Sirianni did not think A.J. Brown was the best receiver, he would not be reading that book on the sideline. Maybe the fifth or sixth receiver on the chart. Don't try that.
Don't pull that. So you got to be a special player to have a book that is on the sideline that you get to read.
Yes.
It's interesting because, we do hear about players now with mental health coaches and sports psychiatrists, Preston. But it feels like that's who you would have on the sideline, not a book. Now, he does go on to mention that book has been through a lot over the course of the season. It's a paperback book. It's damaged and has yellow highlighter is used throughout the book, mentioning the most important parts.
Very true. His book was used up. It was as highlighted as marked, so you could see that he does actually use and read this book. So there's some more credibility to that. Listen, if it works for him and it helps him beat A.J. Brown, good. Any other receiver, don't try it.
Or pretty much any other player. Can you imagine if you just looked over and I don't know. What's the 803-404-6100? What is the book you would want to look over and see your football player reading? The Art of War? I don't know. I would assume. Jen, I'm asking you this just because I feel like out of the three of us, you know the best. I'm not trying to pick on you. Wasn't 50 Shades of Grey initially a book?
What do you mean initially? Of course it was.
Was it?
Christian Grey.
Was it? Okay.
Bill, why don't you think? Why you don't think? I don't know 50 Shades of Grey.
Now we're out of time for this hour. We will do a whole nother hour.
Christian Grey.
That was my fault. I take full blame.
Pressing here for the good folks at QC Kinetics. Don't let the new year catch you the same way the old year did, with hurt hips, bad back, tough ankles. You need to call the folks at QC Kinetics to get moving again in 2025. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine and joint preservation. Yes, you can revitalize your joints with advanced orthobiologic treatments at QC Kinetics. No steroids, no drugs, no surgery, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and it uses natural solutions like PRP to attack the pain from arthritis. So if you want to learn more about how you can refresh your joints and get lasting relief, call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation. Call QC Kinetics at 803-281-6860. That's QC Kinetics at 803-281-6860.
Corley Mill Road heading towards 378, kind of in front of River Bluff High School. There's been a car versus deer incident, working on getting that cleaned up. Also, Kelly Mill Road near EJW Road, there is an accident there. Murray Lindler Road at Chapin Road. Johnson Marina Road and Highway 76, also in the collection of incidences this morning. And we are looking for a high today of about 50. Going to be 57 tomorrow and on Friday. Sunny all days. Loving that. Overnight lows about 30, 26 overnight tonight, 31 tomorrow. But by Saturday, we're going to be looking for some rounds of rain. So rain in the forecast big time for Saturday. High of 54. It's 33 now.
$8 a.m. as we get you up and get you going. You're asking you the question. If you look down on your sideline, you see a football player reading a book. What book do you not want that to be? AJ weighs in as I wouldn't want to see my teammates reading Football for Dummies.
That's a good one.
Day weighs in and says 50 Shades of Grey was originally a Twilight fan fiction, I believe. I have
no clue. Never read the Twilight series.
I feel like this might have turned where it's you or I.
So you weren't Team Jacob?
I don't know what that means.
Is there a Belle or Bella or something in that? Okay. That's about all I know. My kids read the series, but
was Twilight vampires versus werewolves, or was it werewolves versus some other?
That is not my.
Is that right?
Genre.
Okay, I feel like that's the because like it's basically Twilight was the toned down version of Blade with Wesley Snipes. Am I right? Not Blade. What's the one with the? Maybe I am right. I never got into any of those movies. There was the three of them. There's Twilight, which is I think werewolves and vampires, right? Blade was something different. I think Blade was just vampires. And then there's the other one with the dark-haired girl that's always dressed in black, and I can't remember her name, Katie or Underworld. Yeah, that was not my genre of movies to go down.
All the Twilight stuff, that was just a little off for me, and I never got into the Grey series either because men dominated women.
Underworld with Kate Beckinsale's what I'm thinking of the other one.
Nope.
So you familiar with that one?
So you weren't Team Edward?
Exactly.
No.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
Is that a big thing? Well, you were in high schools. You feel like you have a better grasp of what was going on with the the youngs.
You had to pick your side.
Okay.
That was prime time. Team Edward or Team Jacob.
Okay.
So that's how we get our number 3 off and running this morning. We'll get back into some basketball. We've talked a little NFL, and we'll get a little bit into it. I am fascinated by what appears to be a new trend, or slowly developing a new trend, of trading coaches. Because Mike Tomlin has a no-trade clause. And when I saw that kind of tripped me out. And then Mike Tomlin also kind of weighed in, like, anybody that's, like, interested in trying to talk to the Steelers to trade for me, don't. We'll get into that a little bit here this morning. 803-404-6100. Also get back into South Carolina basketball as they get ready for Vanderbilt tonight. You can hear that right here on 107.5 The Game. Pre-game starts at 5:30. Tip-off 6 o'clock. Again, 107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Several of y'all weighing in. Tim in Charlotte, apparently a big Kate Beckinsale fan. Totally understand that. Jacob weighing in. If it ain't the Bible or the playbook, it wouldn't be on my sideline. Okay, there's that. And then Dogman saying you are correct. Do not forget Vampire Diaries and a whole slew of other ones. So we've got all our topics covered. Reading on the sideline, player injuries, and vampires and werewolves here on a January 15th. Let's get out to the phone lines. Patrick wants to weigh in this morning. Patrick, how you doing? What's on your mind?
I'm doing good, guys. Haven't kept up with the Carolina hockey, but they should be restarting up. But the one thing you do not want to see one of your players reading on the bench, and you can watch any given Sunday for this, is Jamie Foxx's character was reading the financial section of the local newspaper. So wondered how you guys felt about that.
That is it. Yes, that seems like a good one. Do not be reading the financial paper, newspaper part.
That's what Trent Dilfer was probably accusing his players of. They're like, man, double this NIL.
Yeah.
See what I can do with this.
I was going to say, actually doing a little shopping, a little home shopping network.
If only I had more NIL, I could invest in this particular stock or that one. Then that comes into play when you're in the off season. So, Patrick, thank you for the phone call, 803-404-6100. Let's stay on that Trent Dilfer NIL topic. Ray wants to weigh in. Ray, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I heard you on the last hour talking about Dilfer and how he's, bellyaching, complaining because the big boys are robbing his players, taking his players. Now, if he's a coach at UAB, let's just suppose he's talking about Alabama and Auburn. Well, instead of complaining about it, use it as a recruiting tool because most kids want to go to the big schools. So he could tell that kid that was marginal, some reason didn't get, taken by the big schools. Son, you come here, give me 2 solid years, put it on the line, get in the weight room, do what you need to do, and there's a good chance the big boys will come after you, and they got more money. I mean, he should, use that as a tool, not a crux. I just want to get your take on it, guys.
That's a great spin. And I think more teams are going to have to go towards coming to grips with that reality that maybe, feeder system sounds maybe disrespectful, but that might be what it is, how players are looking to advance. As Trent is, let me say this, by the way, because Trent, if you were being successful at UAB, you think you would stay at UAB?
You think it bothers him that Deion's being discussed for other big jobs and NFL jobs? And
I keep pointing out, Trent had very little high school coaching experience before this, and he got this job because he's a blowhard and he talks a lot. But, Trent, if you had a better opportunity, you would take it too. So, Ray, I think that's absolutely a way you could go to sell your program instead of crying about what other programs. The only thing that he said, it was programs within his conference. And I would just say again, if you have such a problem with it, call them out by name.
Well, somebody pointed out on our text line, if you want to really follow that, that's fine. Go look at the other programs in his conference and who's taking UAB players. If one player's taking multiple UAB players, it's pretty easy to figure out. But if not, that's not what he accused somebody of in his conference. Isn't exactly hard to find, right? Like you can look at it and be like, oh, okay, school X here appears to have taken 4 players from UAB. He's clearly talking about them. So you may as well at this point just call them out and say that that's why players are transferring. But you know why you don't do that? Because then it comes across like sour grapes, and that's why that team's beating you. So it's a lot easier to do it anonymously, I guess, to say, I don't know, this Team X is doing that, and instead of calling them out on purpose. You haven't angered anybody.
Yeah, don't send me on no wild goose chase. Just tell me what the problem is. You already were telling me this issue. Tell me what the whole thing is.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. Again, basketball tonight. We've discussed this a little bit. We are the king show for being overly dramatic, for hyping things up maybe a little more than they should be. But, Preston, I think we both agree, you look at the South Carolina schedule moving forward, it's hard not to say biggest game of the season right here. You've got to win. You just can't fall. My thing is, and this is a big picture. This is a truly big picture. So I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. And a lot of you are going to push back on this, and that's fine. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but 0-4 in this conference with 13 games to go, South Carolina would fall to 10-7. And I'm starting to look big picture here on this. You can't have a losing season. I was okay if you missed the NCAA tournament in October. I was okay because I knew what you were replacing. Last year was a magical run. You lost some really key pieces. I don't know if I was okay missing the NIT. But what I would definitely say is, Preston, you can't backslide and go losing season, one of the worst South Carolina's ever had, winning season, one of the best South Carolina's ever had, back to a losing season. The inconsistencies can't be there, and that's why I kind of point to this game tonight. 11-6, you give yourself a 5-game advantage on being 500 or better. That, to me, is part of what tonight's game means.
Yeah, and they should win this game if they have dreams of themselves being the type of team that competes in the SEC. And so that's why I'm not backing away from it. This is the most important game of the season for them because you go 0-4 in conference with the supposedly gauntlet of the SEC up in front of you. That could turn the season going, not only losing fan interest, but also losing player interest.
Yeah.
Because being on a terrible team is no fun, especially when you have options.
This is where your transfer portal comes in. Nick Pringle is here for 1 year. Jamari Thomas, I know he's out, is in for 1 year. We don't know what Colin Murray-Boyles exactly is going to be. I'll give you his most recent ESPN draft projection in a second. Tonight, 6 o'clock. Again, we'll have pregame for you, 5:30. Tip-off at 6 o'clock. Game will also be televised on the SEC Network. According to ESPN Bet, at this moment, ESPN Bet here as we sit here at 8:09 a.m., Vanderbilt is a 8.5-point favorite, which in basketball is that's a number now. I mean, it's not double digits, but it's basketball. When you're an 8.5-point favorite, it's a little bit of that's a big favorite. I have to go and look at the money line on that. Speaking of, real quick, recently they put out ESPN put out their most recent NBA draft projections. For those of you wondering, saying, well, what happens with this? What happens with that? With Colin Murray-Boyles. ESPN putting out their most recent draft projections, mock draft. This came from Jonathan Giovanni on ESPN. Let me get the exact date. It was put out on January the 9th. So, again, we're talking very, very relative. Colin Murray-Boyles, if you're wondering, they have him going 19th. He has the Brooklyn Nets on here via the Milwaukee Bucks. He says the Nets currently hold 4 first-round picks, including this one from the Bucks. The stockpile could give them opportunities to add talent or start to consolidate some of their selections. Murray-Boyles put together a strong December for the Gamecocks and will need to carry that productivity into a challenging SEC schedule. Outside of 2 poor shootings against Indiana and Mississippi State, he has showcased the skills necessary. Though his lack of great positional size might limit his ultimate upside, NBA teams remained intrigued by Murray-Boyles' feel and value on both ends of the floor. A strong run in conference play could help him inch closer to lottery status in a first round that could wind up somewhat thin on interior talent. That is the write-up from ESPN on Colin Murray-Boyles. A couple things you hear there. Again, lack of positional size. NBA teams intrigued by his feel and value on both ends of the floor and the potential to inch up closer to a lottery status.
Well, he had 2 games in the SEC which were not good, and then he's had 1 which was very good against Auburn. And so let's see how and if that continues. And I think we can pretty clearly state that if this team is going to win, CMB is going to need to play more closer to what he did against Auburn than what he did against Alabama.
803-404-6100. We'll continue talking a little basketball. We'll get into some NFL coaches here. Mike Tomlin and the NFL coaching carousel with Preston Thorne. You're listening to the early game, 107.5 The Game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner and the family have been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. So whether it's here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, Aiken, Augusta, maybe you're in Greenville, Spartanburg this morning, maybe you're in Charleston, and you have a leak, it's time to let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Give them a phone call, 803 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They will help you with a maintenance contract. Again, doesn't matter where you're at. You don't have to just be here in Columbia. You can be Florence, Myrtle Beach, Aiken, Augusta. Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you. When you give them a phone call, they will have an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee ready to help you with a maintenance contract for that business or for your home. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Still working an earlier tie-up, Murray-Lindler Road at Chapin Road, and also Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76, an accident there. So a few areas still to be mindful of. 50 is where we will get up to today under mostly sunny conditions. Breezy and sunny tomorrow and Friday, 57 both days. Overnight low tonight, like 26. Overnight low Thursday into Friday, 31. The rain is what will be coming in a little bit warmer this weekend, but we will have rain in the forecast before we cool back down next week. And there is that wintry mix possibility come next Wednesday. But we're in good shape right now. It's 33 currently.
8:19, as we get you up and get you going, want to remind you of the winter indoor golf tournament coming up on January 30th and 31st, the first annual Pro Swing Golf Classic, a 2-day event. $150 to register for a two-man team. Bookings are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Food will be included. You can win $1,000 for first place, $750 for second, and $500 for third. So a cash prize. All you got to do is go and call Pro Swing today and get registered. 803-528-1617. Again, that's 803-528-1617. Call Pro Swing. It's the first annual Pro Swing Golf Classic coming up January 30th. And 31st, again, $150 to register, a two-man team. So $75 a person if you're breaking it down that way. $150 total, and you register a two-man team. For more information, you can call Pro Swing, 803-528-1617. Oh, Preston. The Steelers have reached sports purgatory. Good enough to make the playoffs. Good enough to contend. Not good enough to win. Total difference. And like as Rodney says, Rodney weighs in our text on Tomlin needs to go. Steelers are spinning their wheels, and they have been for 10 years. They're always good, not great. The Rooneys need to clean house and admit the party is over. They need a modern offensive approach and a coach who embraces that concept. Mike Tomlin clearly does not.
I think that's all fair. Mike Tomlin, 18 consecutive non-losing seasons, 16 years since his last Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin. Every year for the past 5 years, Pittsburgh, and you'll like this, Pittsburgh has exceeded their Vegas wins totals for the season. Every year in those 5 years, they've lost in the first round of the playoffs. And so you're at the spot where you think about this question. Is good good, or is good not good enough? And I think the way you handle this situation might say a lot about the way you approach all types of things. You know who this reminds me of? Mark Richt in Georgia.
Okay.
I think there's some parallels here between a coach who was well-beloved, successful, ran a great program, respectable, everybody liked them, but they always would reach a ceiling. Nobody wanted to get rid of Mark Richt until Kirby walked in the door, and they were like, oh, this is what we could have.
Well, it wasn't until the thought of Kirby coming to South Carolina appeared that all of a sudden Georgia was like, oh, maybe we should make a change. By the way, Mac, I don't know if you and Mac are the same person, if y'all are related. Mac says Mike Tomlin has become the Mark Richt of the NFL.
There you go. That's something that's just been running in my mind. It's like everybody loves him. He's a great coach, great guy, good interviews. He's going to represent your organization well. If you're a fan of that team, you know your team is going to win 10 games every year. By far, you'll win 8, 9, 10 games. But you also know for the last 5 years at least, you're going to get eliminated in kind of embarrassing fashion in the first rounds. And so, Bill, let's say you're Art Rooney II. What would you do in this situation?
Well, number one, you have to break culture because one of the most amazing, absolutely amazing statistics in all of sports is the number of Pittsburgh Steelers coaches. I think it's something like over the last 60 years.
It's 3.
Yeah, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. I can't remember if it's 60 or 50. I can't remember the exact stat on that. But it is absolutely insane the way now and on top of all that, granted, you do have the bad year here and there. Nobody says, of course, you just said it. Would you say was that 10 years? 10 years of 10 straight years or 15 straight? What was the number you just gave of finishing above the Vegas win spread?
For the last 5 years, they finished above the Vegas win total. What was projected for them to do preseason, they've won more games than that. So the way this article, and this was a great way to phrase it, Mike Tomlin raises the floor of the Steelers, but the ceiling is consistently lower. So it depends on how do you see your organization? What do you want? Right now they're not contending. And there's several reasons. Quarterbacks, they haven't had one. Offensive coordinators, offensive systems, maybe some philosophy issues with Tomlin. I like that style of football, but maybe that style of football is not necessarily conducive to winning playoff games. Tough spot, man. Again, Art Rooney II, what would you do?
Well, let's start with this. If I'm Art Rooney and you're asking me, I'm sitting down to decide what is exactly our issue. Is it just as simple as you just said? We are not innovative on offense. We're still playing a game that's now 20 years behind what other teams are doing. Or is it a situation in which we just don't have the quarterback that leads us to the kind of offense that we need? I mean, you are playing, and Russell Wilson wasn't bad this year. Wasn't good, but wasn't bad.
Right.
Justin Fields, I don't know if that's like. Do you need to look around right now and say we've got to find us a legitimate franchise quarterback? For example, like if you're kind of, I'm just throwing this out there. They don't have the pick to make it work, mind you. But let's say the Cowboys are willing to do something with Dak Prescott that doesn't involve a draft pick. Are you willing to go down? And I'm just using him as a guy to throw out there because, again, they don't have the draft pick. They don't even have a first-round draft pick, to be honest, so it's irrelevant as to whether they could trade, they could give their draft pick to the Cowboys. But as I look around NFL franchises, like, who's that quarterback? Because it feels like you're playing with an 11-7 type quarterback in Russell Wilson.
But here's the problem, and this is the conundrum. They're good enough to not ever get a good draft pick. So because Mike Tomlin will always win you 10 to 11 games or 9 games or whatever, they'll never have a top 10 pick. When they did try to pick a quarterback, Kenny Pickett was 20th.
That's a good point on Pickett. I forgot about that. I actually forgot about that.
They tried. That's over.
Yeah, he's in Philly now.
Yeah, so they did attempt it, but that was still at 20th. And you think if you're reaching for a quarterback at 20th, I don't think anybody was ever sold that Kenny Pickett was going to be the new leader of the franchise. So, again, that's the conundrum. Because they're so solid during the seasons, they never have an opportunity to really build their teams through the draft, through the early spots in the first round where typically franchise-changing quarterbacks are drafted.
Well, to me, that is number one. You're looking at, okay, and if that's the case, now you're going, okay, how do we go about acquiring a quarterback to open up a window for us to be successful? And maybe, there was statistics that suggested Justin Fields could actually be that guy in the right system. If you looked at some of the Bears statistics, you really could have shaded Justin Fields' argument one of two ways, depending on how you personally felt about him, or if you were the team accepting him or getting rid of him. But I'm with you on this. The Steelers, in terms of all sports combined, baseball, football, basketball, they are the model of consistency that no one else matches up to, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of their culture. That's part of why going to an organization like that is the peak of the organization. They run everything, they do everything in a first-class manner, unlike a lot of organizations in the NFL. But they've reached a ceiling with this guy. And I think the way you approach this may figure out how you approach a lot of things. Do we want to be good or do we want to be great?
Mike Tomlin.
I don't know.
Mike Tomlin, who has a no trade clause in his contract, staying yesterday, and he's expected to be back next season. Tomlin having a simple message for teams potentially interested in trading for his services: save your time. So we know where he wants to be. We know what he wants to do. And probably for Mike Tomlin, he's a guy who probably looks around and goes, all right, I'm a play or two away from really winning a Super, not just getting past the first round, but winning a Super Bowl. But Preston, as you kind of stated, even this year, when you look at their losses, you look at the games that they lost, in particular to teams better than them, they weren't particularly close. Right. That to me is the bigger issue when you talk about like losing to the Eagles by 2 touchdowns, losing to the Ravens by both 17 at one point in the season, and then also losing in the playoffs by 14. The games they did beat the Ravens, by the way, in Pittsburgh 18-16, but the majority of the games when they play teams better than them, the Chiefs, they lose 29-10. They lose these games to teams that are just flat better than them, and they lose them kind of convincingly.
They beat who they should.
Right.
And that's what good coaches should do.
And beat teams that they're even with.
And they beat the team that they're even with. But when you get into the playoffs, when you have to force to beat somebody, Tomlin has not been able to prove that him or his style of coaching can do that, at least in recent years.
Michael weighs in on our text line. Steelers fans are delusional. They literally have 2 championships since 1979.
Solid point. And again, Mike Tomlin's, that was 16 years ago.
803-404-6100. We'll get out to the phone lines when we come back. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Zero Risk Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. All right, now we're into 2025. You're past the Christmas parties. You're past the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day parties, and you're probably looking around the house and you're thinking, I've got it all detoxed. I no longer have the Santas up or the Christmas ornaments. And then you look at your carpets and your rugs and your tile and your upholstery and you remember all those great parties and what people spilt on them. Well, don't fret. It's time to call Zerorez because Zerorez can clean like no other because they use their patented ZR water technology with no soap, no residue, and no harsh chemicals to get your carpets, rugs, tile, upholstery all insanely clean. So call today, 803-262-4020. Mention me, Bill Gunner, 1075 The Game, and you get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for only $119. Plus, you'll get a free hallway cleaned. Again, that's 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for only $119. Plus a free hallway when you mention me, Bill Gunner at 1075 The Game. Zerorez. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76, an accident there. Also, Long Green Parkway at Spring Park Drive. Platte Springs Road at South Lake Drive. And I-26 eastbound after St. Andrews Road, the left lane is blocked, so going to want to stay right. And again, that's I-26 eastbound after St. Andrews Road. And then forecast looking pretty decent for a couple days. 50 today, 57 for Thursday and Friday. All sunshine until we get to Saturday, and that's when the rain kicks in. But right now, it's kind of fair and 34 on the early game.
.36 as we roll along. We'll get back into some basketball talk. Again, a reminder tonight, South Carolina Vanderbilt. You can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock tip-off game will also be televised on the SEC Network. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock tomorrow on 107.5 The Game and 100.3 The Game, we will have Carolina Calls with Lamont Paris. And on WOMG, 98.5 here in Columbia, 98.5 WOMG, we will have the women's game coming up 6:30 pregame tomorrow, 7 o'clock against Alabama. They'll be out in Tuscaloosa for their Thursday night game, so get ready for that. We got 2 nights of basketball. Men tonight at Vanderbilt, 6 o'clock tip-off time. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock tip-off time against women take on Alabama. And we'll get back into some men's basketball discussions. Got some statistics here that we will get to. But first, let's go out to the phone lines. Ty wants to weigh in on the discussion we had about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Ty, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Good.
What's on my mind is this is the problem with society today. They only look at one side of the situation. They only say, well, if we blow this up, then we can be successful. That never works out great for most teams that does that. You can ask the Jets. When they had, what's my coach, Herm coach, and when they were going to the playoffs, they were competitive. Oh, Herm's not getting it done. Let's chop him. What happened? We ain't seen the Jets since. Dallas Cowboys. You can go on and on to look at all the teams that blew it up because they wasn't getting over the hump. Most times it don't work out for them. And I don't understand this whole concept where I'm tired of winning and getting to the playoffs. It's not the coach's fault. Y'all said it yourself. It's not Thomas. It's the ingredient picker. They don't know. The thing usually what happens is front offices don't know how to evaluate talent to get rid of them at a good point to get a first-round pick, meaning you can get a cornerback once reach match potential that's starting to fall. You need to trade him to get a first-round pick because you can kind of project who's going to have it or be in that range in the next couple of years by looking at the talent and the way it's going and get a pick. You don't think that happens? Ask the Carolina Panthers who gave all their number 1 picks to Chicago, and that was another team. What happened since Lovey left? Oh, Lovey, he can't get over the hump. We need to get a new coach, and get us to the Super Bowl. Never happened. So I just find it funny when I hear talk like that.
Ty, I appreciate the call. That you're right. That is the other side. I love that phrase. Y'all just get tired of winning 10 games a year and going to the playoffs. There were some teams that would pray for that. You can look at what happened with the Eagles. Andy Reid couldn't get over the hump. They went into a dark place there was the Chip Kelly era. They came back with Doug Peterson. I mean, so
they went to a Super Bowl.
Then Doug Peterson, they got rid of him.
Won.
Yeah.
Well, poor Doug Peterson. Then we thought he was the savior in Jacksonville, and he's on his way out now.
Should have never blew up the Urban Meyer era in Jacksonville.
Yeah, because when you're kicking your kickers.
Ty, those are great points, though.
You know, the thing is, I think with professional sports, and my son Austin and I were joking about this because, I mean, look, I joke. I'm a Heat fan. I did the Ronnie Cycli days and stuff. And so, like, I talked with my son Austin, like, the Heat are a good franchise. They're 20-18. They're stuck with Jimmy Butler right now. They should get rid of him. They can't beat the Cavaliers, by the way, who are 34-5. This is the biggest, we don't need you, LeBron, I've ever seen in my life. 30 for the Cavs are just incredible. But the Heat can't beat the Cavs. They can't beat the Celtics. They can't beat the Knicks. They really can't beat the Magic or the Bucks, to be honest with you. And I say that, and I'm using that reference because the Heat are a successful franchise. If you're a successful franchise like the Steelers, and this is an interesting point, going back to that text message about, hey, Steelers, you've only won 2 championships since 1979. It's not like you're the Cowboys and or even the Patriots, for that matter, or the Chiefs. But winning is not good enough. Just winning. There are franchises, and you're right, there are teams. We're going to watch a wild situation play out over the next, I think, 2 years. Might only be 1. But 2 years with Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is going to coach that team to 8 or 9 wins. I feel like I can guarantee every year. And there's going to be how many college programs would love to go 9-4 every year, 9-3, and have a chance for the college football playoff. Maybe you get the 10-2 thrown in there. Alabama's not going to be one of those. You mentioned it with Georgia. Georgia finally hit a mark where they were, or a point where they were just like, we need more. We need more. You're good. We need more. Mm-hmm. And the Steelers are, when I think about franchises, it's kind of like the Celtics or the Lakers. You either need to be great or you need to be bad so you can start over. And that's the professional side of things.
And that's what Tomlin can't do. He can't be bad. And so their best player, TJ Watt, they got lucky on as the 30th pick. And why did they have the 30th pick? Because they're always pretty good. They're always going to be in the mix.
So really, either we need Tomlin for the Bears so that he'll improve them, or he can drop and fall down to where he'll be bottom so he can get good players again. Because we could destroy him. we seem to be pretty good.
Let me also just make this point, to Jen's point, and to what we're also watching with the Detroit Lions. When you perennially stink, winning is so much fun.
Absolutely.
When you're perennially good, or you have been great, winning is like, we're back. The Lions, there is no fan base in all of sports right now, all of sports, that are happier than the Detroit Lions, because this is rarefied air. And I'm pulling for them to make the Super Bowl. I want personally, if I was to pick 2 teams right now, I want the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl. The poor Bills fans have been just tortured and not only that, then you got to live in Buffalo, which I'm sure is great in the summer, but it's not. If I'm miserable right now in this weather, I don't know what I'd be doing in Buffalo. I want Buffalo and I want Detroit. But that's the point. Even Steelers fans aren't going to appreciate if you get rid of Mike Tomlin and you start winning and you do it. They're not going to appreciate it like a franchise that stunk for years. So to me, might be a hot take, and I might need to reform this one a little bit. You want to be a part of a franchise that stinks and throws you a winning bone twice every 10 years.
So just the consistent. I just show up to the stadium, Heinz Field. We win the games 10 times a year. That's not.
No, it stinks.
It gets boring.
Then when you win, you're like, well, this is where we're supposed to be. Yeah. This is exactly how it should be.
To me, that's kind of like how it's been for Clemson fans. And I mean, and I'm not saying that as a
solid point.
I mean, it's like I would think after a while, it's like, we won again, yay!
Solid point.
I mean,
all those double-digit win seasons get boring after a while.
Let's be honest. As South Carolina fans, we're used to average seasons. That's why this season
makes the wins really
was so much fun.
Yep.
South Carolina basketball.
We're number 3. We don't try at all.
South Carolina basketball historically. Ugh.
That's why last year was so much fun. Which is also why when we watched the women's basketball team and they only beat the team by 20, we're like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Right.
Then we got to come in and have a conversation about, is Dawn losing her touch?
Right.
Is this team not serious enough?
Yeah.
What's wrong with
it's funny. I actually had a general manager in another market who he preferred to be number 2 in the ratings because he just didn't always want the target on his back to be number 1. It's like, I'm good at being number 2.
Always be in the chase position.
Yeah.
Always chasing. You say all that to say what, Art Rooney II? What are you going to do?
Sorry, buddy. You're out of luck.
Ooh. You're going to get rid of. Oof.
You're out of luck. 803-404-6100. Now we'll get to some basketball talk when we come back. We'll wrap it all up. Might have to circle back. Write that one down. We might have to come back to that. 803-404-6100. You're listening to The Early Game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. Let me ask you a question. We just talked about winners and losers, but let me ask you another question. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are you thinking about your roof? Are you thinking about the potential heavy rainstorms of the spring, maybe some of those gusty evenings of the winter that can create havoc on your business or your home and the roof that you have keeping your operation dry and running? Yeah, you aren't. Let's be clear. But you know who is? Mid-State Roofing is. That's why for nearly 30 years they have been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and that's also why 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they are there to help you with a brand new maintenance contract. So give them a phone call. You'll speak with an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee. Doesn't matter whether you're here, Florence, Greenville, Aiken, Augusta, Myrtle Beach, wherever you're at, Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you. So if you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. 803-356-1919. Reminder, the craft beer card, just $59. Go to 1075thegame.com. Click on Sweet Deals. Purchase you a craft beer card today. You can have a savings of around $300. Again, go to 1075thegame.com. Click on Sweet Deals. Purchase your craft beer card today for just $59. Game tonight. Whether you want to join us, whether you don't want to join us, what is undeniable, it's important. Whether you want to go down our path and say the most important of the year, whether you want to just say, well, if they lose this one, they've got, 13 more opportunities to make an impact on their record. And that's both are true. Both can be true at the same time. But, Preston Thorne, you get tonight and you get Oklahoma. And if it weren't for a 3-game losing streak, Oklahoma would be still ranked. And then you'd be looking at basically about 9 straight games versus ranked opponents. Vanderbilt is 13-3. Vanderbilt will come into tonight's game the 7th best scoring offense in the league, 83.4 points per game. South Carolina comes into tonight's game 16th in scoring offense. We did these stats yesterday. It's not just that they're 16th. It's not that they're not even close necessarily to 15th. 15th is Tennessee. Tennessee sits at 77 points per game. A little bit of a surprise for me, actually. But South Carolina at just 72 points per game. Tonight, Vanderbilt will bring in the 9th best scoring defense in the league, giving up just 67.6 points per game. The Gamecocks, 10th in the league in scoring defense, 68.2 points per game.
It sounds like it's going to be a battle of wills. Can they get them to play their style of basketball? They sort of coerced Auburn into playing in the 60s, and that's where South Carolina can win games. I don't think they can win games when it gets up into the 70 plus 75/80. So they're going to need to play defense, play the style of ball that Lamont likes to play, and change the tempo of the game.
Vanderbilt is, quite honestly, if you look at all the stats, they are perfectly mid-average in all the stats. South Carolina, on the other hand, basically last in the vast majority of the stats, whether it's three-point defense, whether it's three-point making, whether it's field goal percentage, whether it's field goal defense. The Gamecocks pretty much in the bottom half of the league in this game. One thing to keep an eye on tonight, South Carolina still one of the better rebounding teams in the country. Preston, that's going to be part of it tonight if you want to play that low-scoring game, not giving Vanderbilt second opportunities.
Yeah, I also saw a statistic where, and this is probably no surprise, but South Carolina's 3-0 when they win the turnover battle, which we go into our FARD analytics. That makes a lot of sense. We get that. But I don't think they have to play a perfect game in order to beat Vanderbilt. And I guess as I'm hearing you say all that, I'm like, all right, man, if it doesn't happen tonight, then when does it happen? And that's kind of my thought process as I'm watching this game. If it's not tonight against a team that they're very capable of beating, then when do we take the numbers as being more indicative of who they are this year?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you want to look at, I can take any stat and skew it and say they got a chance. I'll give you an example. The Ole Miss goes into Tuscaloosa last night and knocks off number 4 Alabama. Ole Miss, in terms of field goal percentages, 14th in the league. Texas A&M is 16th. 15th is South Carolina. You'd be like, well, that matches up well. But then you start breaking down all these other statistics. What is true for tonight is statistically there are a few things that are different. But when you start getting into a lot of the raw data here, the rebounding statistics, the analytics of things, the only major difference, the only major difference in tonight's game, steals. Vanderbilt's number 1 in the country. They average 10 steals per game. Now, how does South Carolina handle that without Jamari Thomas? Is this more of does this set up where Jacoby Wright, who is more of the old man YMCA game, does it fit better for him to take care of the basketball? Does it help Morris Ugasuk a little bit? South Carolina's 16th in the league in steals. They don't create a lot of havoc on defense.
Yeah, and that's a problem. And I don't know whether that's an effort thing or whether that's them not being able to be as aggressive as they need to be. That's something that Lamont prides his units on, and that's something that they have to do in order to get themselves extra possessions.
Other part for tonight that I am extremely intrigued to see, Arden Conyers played 30 minutes the other night. Arden Conyers is kind of performing in a role that we all thought Cam Scott would have. And, you know, what exactly is going on with Cam Scott, I have no idea. What I do know is that Lamont Paris navigated the G.G. Jackson situation historically good.
Perfect.
Like, yeah.
You thread the needle.
You couldn't. And so whatever is going on with Cam, and let's be perfectly clear on this. Cam is not GG. No offense to Cam. Cam can be a really good player. He's not GG Jackson. However that was handled, I give Lamont Paris complete leeway in what he's doing with Cam Scott. I don't look at Lamont and be like, oh, you should. Last week I think I told you I wanted to see him play more. Mm-hmm. But after watching him play, I went, okay, I see it. So whatever's going on, I don't even blink an eye at it and say, that doesn't look right. I think whatever Lamont's doing. Now, how does Arden Conyers play tonight, and what kind of impact can he have off the bench shooting the ball?
Well, he's going to get more. Again, these are the minutes that have been vacated by Miles Studi, so he's going to get an opportunity. We'll see if somebody steps up.
however you want to define it. It's a massive one tonight for South Carolina. We had a texter weigh in earlier. If they lose this one, maybe you lose fan interest. That's just another reason.
I think that's fair.
We'll break it down tomorrow.
So you're going to fire Mike Tomlin or trade him?
I want to trade him. But he's got a no-trade clause.
We can. Everything's negotiable.
Trade him for a first-round pick. Titans, you interested? Bill Gunner for Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, where 2025, oh boy, the deals, the fun, it hadn't stopped over there. It may be a new year, but I tell you what, Love Chevrolet continues to roll on the way they have for centuries. That's right. At Love Chevrolet, they have taken care of the Midlands, and